Hey guys, how you doing? Remo here from Back to Warcraft with a PTR balance patch feedback video. Last night the PTR was updated, and after we had only seen visual changes before, now the more interesting stuff is coming to light. We're gonna have balance patch in 1.32.9, and there's a lot of changes that are planning to be implemented. Of course, this is PTR, so it's still all subject to change. Last night it came out. I saw it, I think at 1 a.m., 2 a.m. or something. Was very excited, very euphoric. Was quite vocal as well that I really like the patch. A lot of good changes are in here, absolutely. But I didn't post a big answer yet via video or text. I want to calm down a little bit, recess, and think about the changes some more. And I'm glad that I did. Because while I do believe a lot of the intentions are correct and a lot of the directions they're heading are proper, there's also some things that are a little concerning. And a few that are possibly very concerning, which I think it's important to shed light on. Of course, something that a lot of people have been talking about is, of course, especially the weak matchups in the game. In my opinion, and in most people's, there are 4 difficult matchups which we should try to fix, which is every race pretty much has 1 weak matchup or 1 hard matchup, let's say. For human, it's against undead. For undead, it's against orc. For orc, it's against night elf. And for night elf, it is against human. So it kind of goes in a circle. I talked about this before in my personal balance feedback after WGL. I guess I'm gonna post that link in the description below if you want to read up on that. But as a reminder, it was post WGL, so Crypt Lord not exactly involved yet. We will see the Crypt Lord in here addressed as well. And this is something perhaps to be kept in mind. The timeline. Of course, the metagame is always shifting. Players are always developing new strategies. The top dogs are always finding new answers. But, of course, we want to see the patch notes. We do want to see the patch notes. And, well, let's dive in. Let's take a look. So, here we go. On the official Blizzard forums, of course. Kvax, the community manager. We're going to go through this bit by bit. I'm gonna first give my 2 cents about everything that is suggested here, about everything that is stated, and then probably wrap it up with a overall impression towards the end. So, let's go ahead. The team has been keeping an eye on recent tournaments, and after careful consideration and internal discussion, today we've patched the PTR, additional changes, updates, our focus has been on. Okay, so they are apparently watching tournaments. And this is something to be kept in mind. Of course, they certainly should. When they're the balanced team, you want to watch the tournaments. There's, of course, a philosophical question, which I don't want to go into deeply, but in a strategy game or in any kind of game, it's hard to balance it properly. Like, who do you balance it around? Do you balance it around the gold players with 1800 MMR, the Master League players, or do you go for the very highest level of competition? My opinion is you have to balance it around the top competition, which can lead to issues with other skill brackets sometimes. But what other option do you have? Do you want to balance it around a Diamond League and make it there as balanced as you can, but that means that on the top level only, I don't know, orcs will be winning? Doesn't seem to make sense. So I think that's also something we should keep in mind, and I would like everyone to, I would remind everyone to try to be unemotional about this, to be as objective as you can, which is hard to do. We all have a racial preference, a racial bias, so being completely unobjective here is not easy, but it's about the health of the game. And I think what we need to make sure we keep in mind here, where we play, how this affects our games does matter kind of, but it's the most important how it's going to affect the top level of play. My MMR, for example, is 2000 to 2100. I have a really tough time against Night Elf. In my ragey moments, I would love to see Demon Hunter Mana Burn being nerfed and removed, but I don't really want it because I know it would be bad. On the top level, Night Elf versus Undead is very balanced, I think. Very balanced. Just I am not that good. I can't keep my Demon Hunter and my DK away from the mana burn, and I lose to Dryad Slow and mana burn all the time, but that's just me. And I think this is how we should view this. Don't just consider it for yourself, how this affects you. This is a big ecosystem. This is about the Warcraft competitive scene, and I think this is the spirit we should try to keep in mind here. Alright, sorry for going on a little tangent there, but I think it's something that is worth saying. As we now go into the patch notes. So, their focus, which is interesting. I don't think they did this before. They have apparently 3 prime objectives that they are considering. So, human vulnerability to peasant harass. I think that's true. That is something very proper to address. With the last patches, Undead, Acolyte, and Ziggurat, their economy has been strengthened. With reinforced defenses for Orc on tier 2, their economy has been strengthened. And I think that was a very good development for the game. It saw less run-bys, fewer lame games, as we call them, and more army interaction on the map, oftentimes 2-base versus 2-base play, and micro-intensive and back-and-forth tug-of-war kind of games. I think strengthening the economy was a good move, and human, in my opinion, definitely the most vulnerable at the moment. Militia, especially for late-game run-bys, are super vulnerable. If you don't have your army in position, oftentimes they can get massacred very quickly. And this isn't a big buff that we're going to see here soon, but I think it's a proper thing to address. It did seem, I also think, like peasants were a little too vulnerable. This will help them out a little bit. Second point, Undead's overperformance. This, I didn't quite understand. I still don't quite understand. So, this is a two-parter here. Keeping an eye on recent tournaments and Undead's overperformance. So, which tournaments were you watching? I guess you were watching European tournaments, and if you look at the results there, then certainly you might think Undead is overperforming because Happy is winning everything, but that is not the proper way to approach it. In Europe, the cold hard fact is simply Happy is just better than everyone else by a lot. If you don't see that, then I'm afraid you perhaps don't know enough about the game. It's not only Happy, though. Happy is way better than everyone else. I think we can pretty much all agree to that. But there's a lot of strong underrepresentation in Europe outside of Happy. That's also true. We had Side doing really well, Exort doing really well, Vortex. But this is because Europe is a very strong Undead region. Has been for a long time. A lot of years ago, it was more Night Elves. Now it's more Undeads. When, for example, over in Asia, we have a lot of really good human and orc performances, showing that they can perform there well. It's just not that popular in Europe for whatever reason. I really don't know why. If we want to look to America, for example, it's kind of 2 players dominating there. It's Cruncher and Hitman. Orc and human in Super Bowl is also really good, but it's not an Undead dominance in NA by any means, but the scene is kind of small. The most important scene, the biggest one, the most competitive one, the strongest by far, is the Asian scene. And there, Undead dominance absolutely is not the case. We have 120 being very competitive, one of the best players in the world, best Undead in Asia, and along with Happy, top 2 Undead. And he gets deep runs, top 4 finishes, sometimes finals. I think it's been quite some time since he won a final, though. Undead is definitely not overperforming there. In fact, outside of 120, Undead is doing very poorly in Asia compared to the other races. Not like they have no chance. But I think Undead is probably doing the worst in China and Korea. So this concerns me. Stating that Undead is overperforming, I think is quite inaccurate. It is easy to go to that assumption looking at European results because Happy is winning everything, but again, that's because he's so good and because the European Undead scene is just very alive and has been very active for a long time. There simply are a lot of Undead players in Europe and a lot of very strong ones. You have to look at this globally, and the strongest region, the Asian one, strongly disagrees with this. So this concerns me a little bit. This seems like I don't know, maybe you guys should watch a little bit more of the agency. Night Elf tier 1 dominance. So these are the 3 most important ones. This one, understandable. Undead overperformance, very questionable. Night Elf tier 1 dominance. Is that a general problem in Warcraft 3? Or is it just a problem for one matchup? Night Elf Mirror, yeah, we see a lot of Potom hunts, but we also see a lot of bears. I think it's a pretty healthy meta there right now, and Mirror's never the most important for balance. Against Undead, there's absolutely no tier 1 dominance. Against Human, there's absolutely no tier 1 dominance whatsoever. It is, however, a factor against Orc. That is true, but why is it one of the focus then? Night Elf versus Orc is a problematic matchup that needs to be addressed. True, but we have 4 of those for every race. Night Elf is too strong against Orc, Orc is too strong against Undead, Undead is too strong against Human, and Human is too strong against Night Elf. So why is only Night Elf here in the focus? Okay, but this is just them stating their focuses, I guess. The more important thing will be the patch notes, and I see this is already going quite long. Oh my god, okay, I need to pick up the pace here a little bit. This was really nice by them to shout out here the community contributors, including us, DreamHack, ESL, WGL, and they are listening to feedback, and I believe that. They really are listening to feedback. A lot of these changes were suggested by the community, and a lot of proper things are being addressed. But now we're gonna get into the nitty-gritty of it. And a little spoiler ahead of time, we are gonna be following a certain theme here in many cases, I believe, where the intention, in my opinion, is good, but the execution seems quite extreme. Very heavy-handed in some cases. The first one, though, is pretty simple. Arcane Tower bonus damage to summons increased by basically, what is that, 25%? But it's not quite 25% damage because they also have the piercing damage thing, so it's less, maybe 20%, 15%, something like that. That's good. That's good. Helps protect the human economy a little bit more, which was by far the most vulnerable economy in the game. I think that's a proper buff. Yeah, I think that's a good one. But to be kept in mind here, human gets 1 buff. It's not the biggest one, but I think it will make a difference. And 0 nerfs. No nerfs whatsoever. And as you will see, as we move to the other races, that is not going to be the case for everyone else. When human wasn't really doing poorly, to be honest. Especially Infi and TH looking so good. Of course, they are extremely strong players, but also others like Hawk, Blade, Chimico, Sock, Fortitude to a lesser extent. So human, 1 small buff, no nerfs. We're gonna talk about that overarching thing later after we've gone through everything. But okay, that's it. That's a pretty simple one. Orc, Blade Master, Mirror Image mana cost reduced. I like that a lot. I think that's very, very, very good. This will help against Night Elf, and that is the problematic matchup against Night Elf. This is how balance changes should look. You look at what is specific in a certain matchup, what only gets used kind of in that one matchup, and then tweak it to help that matchup. This is exactly right. This is completely proper. Love seeing this. I also think Illusion plays really cool. They mention it here with the Lightning Shield. And yeah, I think this is a very, very good buff. It's gonna help, certainly. And then we come to the Torrent Chieftain. And everything that's good about this one, very matchup specific, a buff which doesn't go too far, which shouldn't be too extreme, suddenly gets reversed in this one. Now, this is the theme I'm talking about. With the intention in the proper spot, but the execution being way too heavy-handed, way too extreme, in my opinion. I'm going to be repeating that quite a bit. I'm going to sound a little bit like a broken record. Here we have the first example of this. So TC War Stomp was completely busted in the past. Still one of the strongest spells in the game. 5-second stun on a 7-second cooldown now. Still really good. It's the best crowd control in the game by far, without question. The fact that it can lock down units and heroes so well is probably a little bit too good. So I think a small nerf was warranted. And I think many people agree with that as well. But this is not a small nerf. So this was the old values of the stomp. Stun duration on heroes, not on units. This is for heroes. 2, 3, and 4 seconds. And the intention now is to reduce it to 1.5, 2, and 2.5 seconds. War Stomp is an extremely powerful spell against enemy forces. Needs to be reined in slightly. Yeah, you know what? I like this wording. Reined in slightly. I like that. How is this slightly? I busted out the calculator earlier, boys. And I did the maths on how much this is. So, stun duration, percentage-wise, it would be a 25% nerf, 33% nerf, 37.5% nerf. How do these two things fit together? How is that slight? That is not slight. That is extreme. That is extreme. This is way too much. This is way too much of a nerf. A little nerf was needed. Like you said, needs to be reined in slightly. It even sounds gentle the way they put it. And then they come with a nerf hammer right here. Blizzard, this is way too much. If something is performing too well, you don't want to nerf it into the ground so it doesn't perform at all anymore. You want to nerf it a little bit and see how it does. Maybe then it's still a little too strong. You nerf it a little bit again, but normally that isn't even required. Little changes make a difference. This game is so razor thinly played on the top level. Little changes matter. This is too much. 25, 33, 37.5% nerf on the stun duration. This is crazy. Dude, this is crazy. This is way, way, way too much. So this is just the numerical issues. And this is supposed to, I guess, mainly address Orc versus Undead. Again, Orc does there a little bit too well. And this would help, but it's too much. And the problem is, unlike the Blade Master mirror image, which really only affects one matchup, the problematic matchup, this affects everything. Well, I guess it doesn't affect the matchup against Night Elf so much, but everything else it does affect. Against Human, this is your late game win condition. The Farseer into TC is the strategy, and the TC needs to be very good because of how much the Farseer falls off. Oh, little note here, by the way, I just remembered something. Where did I put this? Alright, there we go. Yeah, this affects every matchup. You don't want to really nerf things where every matchup is concerned, because most matchups are fine, or at least a lot of the matchups are fine. We have a few problematic ones, and those we want to target. But this is affecting everything, every matchup, and this is way too much. Blizzard, please. I'm getting worked up. I was trying to be very calm and collected, trying to get back into my Zen mode. But come on, how is that your intention? This is way too much. So, everyone has said this already, by the way. I am very hopeful that Blizzard will be listening. They have so far. So I hope they're going to go back on this and on a few others. Because everyone is saying this is too much, and I think they're absolutely right. We may not have tested it yet, but I don't think this needs testing. This is, in my opinion, quite apparent. Alright, let me go through my notes here. I wrote down a couple of notes. Yeah, as I said, TC is the late game carry for Orc. This is the way they can stay competitive against Human in the late game. Also in super late game against Undead, it's an important factor. Might make Orc Mirror less interesting as well, as we may move away from tier 3 play. But yeah, this is too much. Exactly. What I wanted to say was the values I think it should have. So, this is too much. Everyone agrees. I've heard a lot of people say that they want to see 2.5, 3 seconds, and I think that might be okay. Also, don't nerf level 1 Stomp. Level 1 Stomp is weak already. Don't make it weaker. Just keep it 2 seconds and slightly rein in level 2 and 3 Stomp. So in my opinion, 2, 2.75, 3.5 would be enough. It's really the 4-second stun on level 3 that's the crazy thing. And half a second, some of you may think it's not that big of a difference, but it is. Getting that invul off in time, getting that heal scroll off in time, getting that TP or whatever off in time, that half a second would make a big difference. 2, 2.75, 3.5, I think would be enough. I think if this is nerfed to 2, 2.53, it might still be too big of a nerf. I think it would still be too big of a nerf if it was at 2, 2.53. But this is ridiculous. I'm sorry, but it is. It's crazy. Again, if something is performing too well, rein it in slightly. Your intention was there. The wording was right. And then you come up with these numbers. I don't know how that's possible. Little nerfs to get it in the right spot. Don't go crazy, please. All right, we move on to the next one. I'm going to be saying this quite a bit, folks, so get ready. We move on to Undead. Much like Orc, we have nerfs and buffs included, mostly nerfs, because Blizzard thinks that Undead is overperforming, which I'm not so sure is accurate. But let's go over this. Spirit Tower and Nerubin Tower repair rate increased from 35 to 60. So this is a little confusing. Increase sounds like a buff. I'm going to explain to you how that works. So what that means is when a Nerub Tower is almost dead or basically has 0 HP, repairing it from 0 to 100 takes at the moment 35 seconds, and with the nerf takes 60 seconds. And as you can see, this is almost double the time. Again, we are getting close to crazy nerf numbers. Earlier we had 37.5% stun duration nerf on level 3 stomp. I actually didn't do the math on this one, but this must also be around 40% of a nerf or something. And it's the same thing again. Yes, it should have probably been nerfed a little bit. It's probably a little too strong. The repair rate is quite good and should probably be nerfed a little. So let's nerf it a little. Let's go from 35 to 40, maybe 45. 45 at most. But not 60. Not 60%. This is just true in everything that you want to nerf. Just nerf it a little. But especially in this case, it could be very problematic because this could have dire ramifications. So first of all, metagame. Undead for the longest time was only playing DK Fiends, 1-base tier 3 push. Kind of boring. Couldn't play many different strategies. Recently, with the fast expansion play of Crypt Lord, there's been more variety, which I think is really good. But for that, yeah, tower repair helps. With that tower repair rate now being nerfed, again, the fast expansion is being disincentivized. The Crypt Lord nerfs are disincentivizing the fast expansion play, and that is again being pushed into the 1-base push strat. And that is very one-dimensional and shouldn't be any game designer's goal, really. So that is the metagame implications overall. But way more dangerously, this opens up a lot of super annoying, I almost want to call them toxic strategies. Mass tanks dropping into the base. Liquid fire bat riders. Glaive pushes with AP behind support. Those cheesy, annoying, lame strats become so much stronger with this nerf because Undead has a tougher time holding on with their repair and can get lamed out of the game. This change could greatly decrease the quality of the experience of your Undead player base. I'm absolutely certain that we're going to see way more laming, annoying strategies coming out against Undead if this goes live. Just looking at the numbers, this is too much, like a lot of other changes here. Yes, Ziggurat repair rate or tower repair rate is a little too good, but nerf it slightly. A little bit. A little bit. Rein it in slightly, as you stated before with something else. And see how it goes. It's probably enough. The Crypt Lord is also getting nerfed the second time. It's not like Undead Fast Expansion is too good. And to further expand on that, Undead Fast Expo with Crypt Lord was definitely overperforming and impressive in Europe especially. But is that the only thing that Blizzard is looking at? In Asia, it really didn't do that hot. Undeads in general, they aren't doing too well. The Crypt Lord with the most recent nerf already has gotten quite a big hit, which weakens the strategy significantly of fast expansion. And now this as well, and another Crypt Lord nerf. I feel like Blizzard here isn't giving enough time for the new Crypt Lord with the Beetle's nerf from before, and taking that into consideration. Also, another thing to be kept in mind here, by the way, which I think oftentimes tends to be forgotten, is Undead Repair is the most expensive by far out of all the races. And that is because Undead cannot repair with their lumber workers. Normally Orc and Human and Night Elf, they always want to repair with their lumber workers. They want to keep everything in gold if they can for the gold income, because that's the most important thing. And they want to repair with the lumber workers, only bring in the gold if they really have to. As Undead, you have to use your gold workers to repair. Ghouls can't repair. So if you're going to repair buildings, it's gonna cost you double. That's something to keep in mind here, and this is, I think, why Undead Repair should be a little bit stronger than the other races. As I said, it is probably a little too good. I agree with that. The Narrow Tower repair rate and Spirit Tower, it is quite extreme. Could be nerfed a little bit, but this is not a little bit. This is a tremendous amount. Don't know how many times I'm gonna repeat it, but I'm gonna repeat it a lot of times. If something is doing too well, nerf it a little so it gets properly adjusted. Don't nerf it into the ground, for the love of God. Okay, I think that's all I want to say about that one. Yeah, I think I got it pretty much covered. So, next point, Destroyer. This one I really like. Everything that gives you more control over the game, more responsiveness, and more direct interaction is good. Anything that's a delay is annoying. Shop delay, dispel delay, any delay, super annoying. So this is very good. This is going to help with quick dispelling, reaction time against entangles and summons and whatever. Going to help you micro your destroyers more properly. It doesn't make them too strong in straight up fighting, which is not what you want for magic immune units. You don't just want to have mass magic immune units against mass magic immune units. That's super boring. Suddenly spells don't do anything anymore. But this helps with their utility. This is a very good change. I like that a lot. It's especially going to be quality of life. It's going to make the Destroyer technically a little stronger, but not by much. It's mostly quality of life and the feeling of the player controlling them. This is very good. So here we go. Crypt Lord getting nerfed again. This time the Burrow ability is being removed, or at least locked behind the upgrade. Means Beetles level 2 and 3 won't have Burrow anymore naturally, but it will be locked behind the tier 2 upgrade, which I think is proper. Crypt Lord is very strong early, or can be. At the moment with the new nerfs, we're not quite sure yet. But if you get pushed with ghouls and beetles, suddenly they start burrowing. It's a little too strong, it's a little too annoying. I like this change, but I think this one in conjunction with the Beetle's HP nerf might be a little too much. I'm not sure though, this would need some testing. The thing to keep in mind here is we want the Crypt Lord to be viable first hero option outside of DK. We don't want every single game to see DK first. Dreadlord is too weak to be played first. Lich is almost always too weak to be played first, so Crypt Lord is the only viable option. So to keep the game healthier, you want the Crypt Lord to be viable. So this is there's a big incentive to have Crypt Lord be good, but of course not too strong, not too oppressive as he was before. So I'm kind of worried about this. Crypt Lord nerfed plus towers repair rate nerfed may just mean we're gonna see DK 1 base every single game, every single time. No variety, nothing. When I know this was a priority for Blizzard before, now I'm pretty damn sure we're gonna see less diverse strategies from Undead. I had an idea just earlier how to possibly help with this, how to give the Crypt Lord a little bit of help to make him more of a viable first hero option outside of DK. And that is target his stat points. Don't buff his beetles, which can be really oppressive, but help the hero himself buffing his stats a little bit to give him a little more spell power in this case. And I don't know if that's good. I haven't thought about it much, but one thing to possibly do is to increase his intelligence gain. At the moment, Crypt Lord has an intelligence gain per level up of 1.6. If that was to be increased from 1.6 to 2, would certainly help. I don't know if it would be too strong. No idea. Haven't thought about it much. Would have to be tested, of course. But that would help him be a viable late game alternative as a first hero compared to the DK. Don't know if it would be too good. But I think Crypt Lord, he's been nerfed twice. He may need a little bit of a boost because I think most people don't want to see DK first fiends every single game. But with these most recent developments, it is pretty likely that that is going to be what's going to be occurring. Alright, next point, Death Knight. This is the biggest one, I guess, for Undead. Death Knight is played almost all the time, even as a second hero after Crypt Lord will be played. Coil and Aura are just so good, you don't really want to skip out on them. And a nerf is intended. From 20% movement speed to 15%. Let's leave the developer's notes as well. The Death Knight has been staple premier hero for Undead for a very long time. After numerous buffs to other parts of the Undead arsenal, the Death Knight remains supreme. We've noticed that once the Death Knight reaches Unholy Aura level 2, they are able to take fights they wouldn't normally be able to due to their increased mobility and kiting potential. There's certainly truth in this, but let's go through it one step at a time. So, first thing kind of to be mentioned is after numerous buffs to the other parts of the Undead arsenal. Yes, there were buffs. Disease Cloud especially, I think, stands out. Crypt Lord as well, but when you play Crypt Lord, the DK takes a back seat, pretty much. Fiends are the same. Statues are nerfed. Don't know if you guys remember, they used to have 50 HP more. Destroyers are nerfed. Orb of Corruption is nerfed. So yeah, there were buffs, but there were also nerfs. Banshees remained the same. Necros, they changed and then they went back to normal. I'm not even sure about the Necros anymore. Who cares? Nobody plays Necros. So yeah, there were buffs, but there were also nerfs. I wouldn't necessarily say that the Undead army became so much stronger with the recent changes. It was just a bit of shuffling around between nerfs and buffs. So I don't really agree with that statement that DK has to be nerfed because the Undead army became so much better. Don't really think so. But I think there is definitely a reason behind this change. It can be really, really frustrating and feel quite imbalanced if your opponent has everything 20% faster. At 10% movement speed, it's not that noticeable, and the level 1 aura at 10% movement speed, everything for the Undead in every matchup revolves around that movement speed. So I'm very glad that they didn't change level 1 DK aura. That was very important, thank goodness. But level 2 DK aura, they did nerf from 20% to 15%. And again, as you may notice, if we look at this mathematically, that is a pretty strong nerf. That is a 25% nerf. And again, I come back to my earlier point, and I will reiterate. If something is doing a little too well, nerf it a little bit. Don't give it too much of a nerf. And especially in this case, we see DK with aura all the time. Every matchup, almost without exception, it is the staple of the Undead army. There's one matchup in which Undead is doing too well against human. So why are they targeting this, which affects everything? Why aren't they nerfing Pit Lord Reign of Fire, for example, which would be specific against human expansion? Why aren't they buffing Knights or human 1-base tier 3, something like that, to help the one specific matchup? They are touching something here that affects everything, which I don't think is necessarily the right approach, but at the same time, it is crazy strong, perhaps a little too strong, to have all that increased movement speed, which especially becomes noticeable on level 2. Oh my god, this video is going so long. So, to make this long story short, this is too much. Much like before, this is too much. Also, they don't say what level 3 movement speed is gonna be, by the way, which is weird. So, is it gonna be 10%, 15%, 30%? I guess they just forgot about that. But yeah, anyways. This is too much. Nerf it a little. Don't nerf it that much. I think 10, 18, 26% would be the proper way to go. In my estimation. But this is, once again, too much of a nerf. Blizzard, calm down. Rein it in slightly. I'm repeating your words back to you. Rein it in slightly. And we move on to the next point, which is the biggest offender about all this. And don't want to be too critical here. Again, it comes from a place of good intention, I guess. Wisps were too strong. Their mana drain, yes, especially against Orc, it's very powerful, very painful. If the Orc doesn't split perfectly, while he also has to manage so many other different things at the same time, a few Wisps come in and can burn like 500 mana in a few seconds. Too much, too strong. Yes, everyone agrees. 50 mana burn to 25. This is where they actually put the cherry on top of the cake. This is an actual 50% nerf. 50%. This is double the value of this. If you were to revert it and to look at, I guess, from a buff perspective rather than a nerf perspective, it would be buffing the effect by 100%. This is crazy. Blizzard, this is crazy. I'm sorry, but this is way too much. Way too much. Yes, Wisps are too strong. They're a little too oppressive, but they're also very needed. I think against Orc, if you're in good enough of a game, you can even win without Wisps, but with Wisps it gets easier. But against human super late game, it probably is desperately needed. Burn the casters, make sure there's not too much slow, too much inner fire. Dispel some of that inner fire, maybe burn the MK, you have to come in with a flank, it's not easy. You need the Wisps. This is too much. This is just crazy. You now have to, okay, let's say Shaman, how much mana pool do they have? I'm not sure. But let's say you want to drain 200 mana out of a Shaman, right? It's gonna require 8 Wisps. It's double, it's literally double. It used to be 4, now it's 8, this is... Now that I have time to think about it from last night, I'm kind of shocked at this. A 50% nerf. Yes, people were frustrated with Wisps, and yes, they should be nerfed, but not that much. And I think it's pretty clear what the answer should be. 40%, most people, 40 mana drain, most people are saying 40 instead of 50. I think that might even be too much. I think 45 might be better. Orc also has, by the way, been doing better and better against Night Elf recently. Lin's getting closer. Fly's been playing really well. It should be definitely one of the two, though. It should be 40 or 45. Not 25. This is absolutely crazy. Okay, I think we have to speed up a little bit, though. This video is getting quite long. But yeah, this is another one of those. This keeps on repeating in these patch notes. Decent intention in kind of the right direction, but way overboard. Way too heavy-handed. Alright, next one. Druid of the Claw, Bear Form. Base damage increased from 24 to 25. Immediately made me think of Lado. Lado, I hope you're happy now. The bears now again have their +2 damage, or -2 from back in the day, whatever. Yeah, bears a while ago were nerfed -4 damage, and they got +1, then they got +1 again. I think that's okay. Bears definitely aren't the strongest units, but they're a late game staple for Night Elf that they oftentimes just have to go for. This is going to be a late game help. This plus Chims, which we're going to see in a moment, I think is going to help Night Elf. I think this is good. What I don't really like about this is that only the bears are being addressed, when there is a very clear discrepancy in power with the tier 3 melee fighters. I mentioned that in my personal balance suggestions before. MGs and A-bombs are very strong, and they should be, because they're expensive tier 3 units, they're in a good spot. Bears and Torrents and also Knights are all weak in comparison. So I think they all three should be buffed a little. If you want to read up on my suggestions, you can do that in the link below. So only bears getting addressed. I don't like that, especially that Torrents aren't getting help, which are the weakest by far. I think. But okay, it's still okay. This is gonna help against human, and that's good. This, though, is gonna be very painful against human. Very, very painful. And again, these are the problematic matchups we need to keep in mind. Night Elf is doing bad against human. We want to help out there. The bears help, but these just gut the Night Elf. This is just crazy. This needs to be changed. This needs to be changed. So, we move on to the next one. Chimera-friendly fire removed. I like that a lot. This is just annoying. In certain situations, you know, you want to make this and that army. That's a cool thing about Warcraft. You can assess the game and you're like, all right, I need this and that kind of army. I need these units for those, and I'm going to micro it like this and that, and you have your game plan in mind, and then you do it perfectly, you execute it, and it works out and you win. But Chim's having friendly fire. Let's say he's playing knights, and you want to make Chims, but you also need to have a front line. Mountain Giants, yeah, but you also need bears for Reju and Roar. And this is the big problem with Chims. Their friendly fire damage doesn't really matter so much against MGs and heroes. It's very reduced. It doesn't hurt that much, but it hurts your own bears a ton. And that's a problem. I like this one being removed. I heard some people complaining about it. I heard that apparently in FFA it's problematic. Not my area of expertise. I think this is really good. And mainly, this is because of heroes. Weirdly. In my opinion, Night Elf triple hero is by far the weakest in the game. All other three races have very strong triple hero options. Night Elf dual hero is good. Triple hero, there seems to be rarely any good one you can go for. So what Night Elf normally relies on is very strong army to keep them competitive in the late game. Bears, Mountain Giants, Dryads with lots of upgrades. And now you can fit Chims in easier. You can play Chims and Bears together more easily, which I think is good, is a step in the right direction. That is gonna make up for the hero weakness of Night Elf that is oftentimes visible for them in the super late game. It is certainly gonna help out in some matchups quite a bit. For example, Bear against A-Bomb frontline, Chims splashing in. Yeah, that's gonna make them quite a bit stronger, but I really don't think Chims are by any means too strong. But that's something we have to keep an eye on. Maybe this is gonna make them a little bit too strong. Hard to tell. We're gonna have to see some matches, but I think this is a good change. I think it goes absolutely in the right direction. With the Night Elf needing a strong army in the late game. Okay, anything else I want to say about that? No, I think that's pretty much it. Alright, we get to... That's it for the race changes, by the way. Now we get to the items. For that one, I won't need so much time, because these are less contentious, of course. Not race-specific, but just affecting everyone. So, the +4 items, Helm of Valor and stuff, we all knew were too weak. They're now being buffed from +4 to +5, which is definitely good. And very much not in line with the rest of the patch. I think these changes don't go far enough, actually. Whereas all the other changes, or not all, but a few of them are going way too far. But yeah, this is good. I think the items still will be quite underwhelming compared to certain ones. The thing is, this doesn't solve the real issue of finding the perfect nuts item for yourself or your opponent that perfectly complements the army, and the other guy finds a trash item that he has to sell because it doesn't do anything. Like, even if you replace these items with Crown of Kings, which was my idea, which may be a little bit too good, you can still find the aura that you already have. If you're AM, you can find Brilliance. If you're DK, you can find Unholy. If you're Orc, there's 2 auras you can find that you can make use of. Finding bad items will always be a part of the game. Always. No matter how well we balance the items. And that isn't being addressed, I find a little disappointing. Because there, I think, is a very clear solution to the problem. Todd came up with this. I heard this from him a few months ago, and I think it is the perfect solution. Increase item sell value. At the moment, items sell for 50% of their value. So that means Big Mana Potion, for example, for 400. For 50%. I think this should be increased. Todd said 80% sell value. I think that's a little extreme. that kind of might lead to games just players selling items all the time because it's so valuable. When items are a really fun factor, you kind of want them to keep, you want the players to keep the items, but if they can't use them, you want them to get good benefit out of selling them. So I think increasing the sell value from 50 to 65 would be more appropriate. 65, 60, 65, something like that. But yeah, this is still a good change. It is a good change, but it doesn't address the bigger problem of finding bad items, the RNG factor. We could rein it in by increasing sell value, but well, not a part of these patch notes. And this one I was very, very, very happy to see. Speaking of variance and of RNG, claws of attack +6 are found on many maps, on many camps, too strong. Always the best item in every case. They are too good. You feel that especially if you play mirror match. If you find 2 claws, the opponent finds 2 rings. Really bad, but it's the case in every matchup. Just in the mirror, you see it very, very clearly. And this is going to rein in that variance, that RNG factor, a little bit. I think claws are still the best item from this camp, but they are not so insanely strong. Not by far the strongest anymore. I think ring, gloves, claws, and circlet are now pretty even, which I think is really good, really important, because they get found all the time. These camps are crept all the time. Really like this. This is a perfect change, I think. All right, towards the end. As always, these updates are subject to change, but we believe this provides a good starting point for testing, data gathering, and feedback from the community. Yep, there's going to be a lot of feedback from the community. Data gathering is questionable because this is on the PTR, but playing on PTR is horrible. I mentioned this to Blizzard many times before. We need a PTR on different servers. We need a European PTR, but the PTR only is on America, which means you connect to the American servers, which means you play on 200+ ping. And especially when you're trying to feel differences in the game, little subtle changes, being forced to play on 200 ping where everything feels weird is so detrimental. You can't really feel these changes properly, at least that's how I feel. And I know that many others feel like that as well. As for a date for this patch, we're currently targeting the week of October 19 after DreamHack Fall and WCG concluded. That's very good. Thank you, Blizzard, for not pushing out the patch in the middle of a tournament season. That is very good. You know, I've been complaining a lot here, but there's also a lot of good things in these patch notes, and this is certainly one of them. Thank you for considering the pro scene and adjusting the schedule accordingly. So, yeah. That is kind of my take point on these things, but I'm not quite done yet. There are some things I still want to address. So, the big overarching story here for me is good intentions, right direction in the most cases, but in some of them going way overboard. I outlined it in detail, as you noticed, for quite some time. Blizzard, please, as you stated yourself, rein it in slightly. Not going crazy with 30% nerfs and 50% nerfs. That's just insane. Please, take a step back. So that's the first point. Second one is, everyone is getting some nerfs. This is, of course, way too much. Undead is getting a lot of nerfs. I hope this is not just my racial bias kicking in here. But of course, I am aware I have a racial bias, much like everyone else does. That's something that nobody can completely turn off. Yeah, comes back, I guess, to the Undead overperformance. I hope Blizzard revisits this view and tries to keep the Asian scene in mind more, because yeah, on the top level this isn't really the case. Anyways, yeah, Undead getting a bunch of nerfs, some of them definitely too much, I think, and yeah, this one as well. So we have some buffs, some nerfs for the races, with the exception of human. It's not a big buff, but it's 0 nerfs. Why is human not getting nerfed at all? There are some problems with human, absolutely. First of all, they're not doing bad, as shown by InfiTH and other top humans. Human absolutely does perform well. Not against Undead, but that is a separate issue. Why was there no nerfs for the human? I think there are 2 clear nerfs that should happen for humans. So the The matchup to be kept in mind here, most importantly, is against Night Elf. Humans, strong matchup. The matchup that is too strong is against Night Elf. So what would be the proper way to address that? In my opinion, and of course there's many differing opinions about this, it's slow. Sorceress, slow, I think is the main culprit. It weakens bears by a ton. It weakens Demon Hunter by a ton. Even Panda, as he can't get into the right position. Chimeras also can be affected by this. I go into this in detail in my balance post if you want to read up on it. But basically, Night Elf can never dispel all the slow that human can throw out. So I think slow has to be nerfed a little bit. I think that would be the one change that would be tremendously helpful for Night Elf to make the matchup more fair. The slow movement speed, that is. Attack speed is okay. Movement speed, slow, should be nerfed. At the moment, the movement speed slow from Sorceress slow is 60%. If this was nerfed to 55 or 50%, probably 50%, I think that would be the proper way to go. But we have 0 human nerfs here. Also, another problematic thing for human versus orc, I think, is control magic is way too good. Farseer already falls off super heavily in the late game. Even his Chain Lightning basically doesn't do anything anymore against breakers. So control magic, I think, should be moved back to tier 3. Nerfing breakers could also be an idea, but that could be dangerous against Undead, where humans oftentimes rely on breakers while bridging the gap to tier 3. So nerfing them by reducing armor by 1, for example, could be problematic. Of course, the TC is getting nerfed. Hopefully not as much as they're saying. I think they're gonna go back on that a little bit. I certainly hope so. So human versus orc, I think is pretty even. Lynn agrees. It's not an easy matchup for human, but if it's uneven, it's not by much, I think. TC is getting nerfed. I think human needs a bit of a nerf as well. Targeting breakers is dangerous, although it could have tremendous upside, especially for human mirror. Against Undead, it might be dangerous. Slow is the best thing you can touch. Slow doesn't matter against Undead in almost every case because of destroyers. Against Night Elf, it's too strong. Against orc, it can be too strong. And since the TC is getting nerfed, something from the human side, I think, should also be getting nerfed. So yeah, slow and control magic back to tier 3. Those would be my suggestions because, yeah, this is looking, well, quite daunting for the competitive scene. Everyone is getting nerfs, significant nerfs, except for humans. Humans are just getting a buff. Yeah, that's a little concerning. And does that wrap it up? Did I want to say anything else? No. I think that's it. Maybe if I forgot something, I may post it in the comments or something. Well, anyways, that's it. To be kept in mind here, of course, is also these things have to be tested first, but with our PTR situation, it is not easy to do that at all. But even without testing, some of these nerfs are very clearly going way too far. Blizzard, I hope you're seeing this video and many other balanced feedback videos. I know a lot of other pro players and personalities are doing them because, yeah, this patch has a lot of good things about it, but also is going way too far in some regards. That is my opinion anyways. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. And please try to be subjective. Try to leave your ego and emotions out of it. I know balance talk can get very toxic very quickly. Everyone has their racial bias that nobody really can perfectly shut off. But let's try to keep in mind there's 4 different races and it's a big community. We're spread across them and we want to have the game as healthy as possible. We want to have a healthy community and we want to have a healthy, balanced discussion. Let's not just whine about balance all the time. Let's not just bitch about balance all the time. Let's be constructive about this and try to make these changes as well as possible. Balance the game as well as possible, yes, but if we're only devolving into toxicity and mean conduct, it's not gonna serve anybody well. So, yeah, keep that in mind if you can. And that's it. Almost an hour. Jesus Christ, that's way too long. But I guess that's how it is. Alright guys, see you soon. Twitch.tv/back to Warcraft. My name's Remo. Thanks for checking this out, if you manage to stay until the end. And see you guys soon. Bye bye.